This year, thousands of people became self-employed, opening small businesses everywhere. While in the countryside, private farmers are working what used to be state-owned land.
This is the first steps towards a transformation that is going to be wider and deeper than that.
But there is a price to pay. More than 1 million state workers are due to be laid off. A Communist Party Congress, the first in 14 years, has been called to ratify the reforms. Can President Raul Castro keep everyone on board? Something is happening on the streets of Havana that hasn't been seen for years. Small businesses are appearing everywhere. In communist-run Cuba, 85% of the population are employed by the state. But now the government is issuing 250,000 licenses to would-be entrepreneurs, and the interest is enormous.
Of all the new businesses that people are applying for, the most popular appear to be cafes like this hole-in-the-wall snack bar. There's a hospital across the road, so business is brisk. And on this street alone, I've counted 10 new businesses. Let's go and see them. The first one is here. It's a barber's shop. Hairdressers and barbers were some of the first to be allowed to work for themselves. They rent the shop off the state and can set their own prices. So we've got a private barber's shop and a little cafe over there. Let's see what else is on the street. Now, the man who lives in this building has been given a license to rent his front porch to other businesses. So here we've got Daeli with a little market stall. She's selling everything from packets of plugs to light switches. And over here she's got a little range of jewellery. This is the landlord, proudly showing off his very first rent book.
Creo que esto es como todo, es empezar. Con el tiempo se irá diversificando, tendrán que crearse nuevas alternativas. Toda solución a un problema genera nuevos problemas. Es así. Ahora está, mira, ya se puede alquilar la vivienda, ellas tienen un área para vender y ofertar sus productos, quizás después haya que darle más condiciones a las áreas, ir creando nuevas facilidades tanto al arrendatario como al arrendador.
These sorts of roadside market stands can be seen all over Latin America, but until now they've been illegal in Cuba. Now in this patio area there is a second business selling CDs and DVDs. They're all pirated, and there's everything from The Lion King to Lord of the Rings. For the authorities, job creation, it seems, is more important than copyright. But the government probably argues that it's all down to the US trade embargo because they're not allowed to import these anyway. Now, the woman running this little DVD and CD business is Lazara. What were you doing before? ¿Qué hiciste antes de eso?
Trabajaba en contabilidad.
You were an accountant. So she was an accountant who's been laid off, and she's decided to do this business instead. Vale, ¿se puede sobrevivir con eso?
Sí, no.
Yep. She says she can pretty much earn a living from this, probably better than when she was an accountant.
Some small family businesses were allowed after the Soviet Union collapsed, leaving Cuba almost bankrupt. But they were treated as necessary evils, and many were forced to close once the economy picked up. Rafael Hernandez is editor of Temas, an official magazine covering issues relating to culture, ideology and society.
We have to stop considering the trabajadores por cuenta propia, the self-employed workers, the private sector, the non-state sector as the necessary evil. they are part of the socialist system. They are part of the socialist model. They will be a legitimate part of this new socialism in Cuba.
Shortly after the revolution in 1959, Fidel Castro started expropriating all the major industries, banks and farms, many of them American-owned. 10 years later, he went further, nationalizing almost all remaining jobs, from builders to barbers, and insisting that everyone from doctors to street cleaners be paid the same. The aim was to create a new man based on moral, not monetary incentives. Today, wages are low, barely $20 a month, but in return, the state takes care of everything from health, education and housing to a ration book with heavily subsidized food. It's proved a costly experiment. Productivity is low, and in these tough economic times, the government can no longer afford such a generous welfare state.
Aquí en la portada está un mapita.
Fidel Castro has retired due to ill health and has been busy publishing his memoirs and writing articles mainly about international affairs. His younger brother, Raul Castro, is now president, and in his most recent televised address to the National Assembly, he admitted that they went too far.
Se trata sencillamente de transformar conceptos erróneos e insostenibles acerca del socialismo, muy enraizados en amplios sectores de la población durante años, como consecuencia del excesivo acerca del socialismo. Muchos cubanos confundimos el socialismo con las gratuidades y subsidios.
What he's proposing remains a long way short of China's free market reforms. But the changes, published in a 32-page booklet circulated for discussion, do cross some important ideological divides. When the Communist Party Congress meets here in April, it's likely to be the last time that Cuba's aging leadership are sitting on the platform there. Even before the popular uprisings across the Arab world, President Raul Castro was warning the party that changes are needed if the system they created is to survive once the generation that led the revolution have gone. For many, the changes are likely to be painful. Raul Castro intends to streamline overstaffed, state-run industries where the tradition has long been jobs for life. More than 1 million people, about a fifth of the workforce, will eventually be laid off. Subsidies ranging from works canteens to the ration book are also being phased out and will eventually be replaced by some form of means-tested benefits for those most in need.
Está referido al debate del proyecto de lineamientos.
In the build-up to the Congress, Cubans are being asked to debate the changes in factories, farms and neighborhood blocks like this one. This is the third time since taking over the presidency that Raul Castro has initiated debates and discussions on major issues facing the country. But on all the previous occasions, they've taken place behind closed doors. Nuevo Venado is a comfortable district of Havana with many party functionaries and people who've done well out of the system. Some are clearly uneasy about the change of direction.
A mí realmente no me gusta. Esto siempre en mi núcleo, el secretario lo conoce, siempre he tenido el concepto socialista de que no existe la pequeña propiedad privada. Eso no existe. Eso es un concepto ideológico que no existe. El que hoy tiene una cafetería, mañana quiere un bar. Y si el bar le da resultado, quiere dos.
Yet every time, section by section, the proposed changes are put to the vote, there are no dissenting voices. Everything is passed unanimously.
Lo someto a la consideración de ustedes.
But it was on other issues, such as wanting the right to travel abroad or buy or sell their homes, that the discussion really heated up.
Y yo creo que ha llegado el momento de que cada cual haga con su casa lo que pueda o quiera hacer. Considero que llegó el momento de que hay cosas como el problema del automóvil que decía César, esas tonterías que el Estado tenía en sus manos de tener que estar controlando si Pedro, o como el caso mío, tiene su casa y la quiere vender, que no puede hacerlo.
I think that these are preliminary changes. Preliminary changes because this is the first steps towards a transformation that is going to be wider and deeper than that. These are symptoms, the first signals of that transformation that won't take place until after April, when the party congress takes place.
Heading out of Havana and into the countryside. This is where the first signs of market reform began. Three years ago, President Raul Castro started transferring unproductive state-owned land to private farmers. But with most transport firmly in state hands, getting food directly to the public is no easy matter. Now the government has started legalizing roadside stands.
This is completely new. For the first time, the government is allowing private farmers and cooperatives to set up roadside stands and sell their fruit and veg directly to the public.
Este punto de venta fue creado por el Estado para hacer la mercancía que está intrincada en lugares intrincados, puedan sacarla en carros de caballo, en yuntas de bueyes, porque son lugares intrincados que no llega el transporte allá para poder sacarla aquí al pueblo y que no se le quede esa mercancía en el, ¿tú me entiendes?, en el campo.
Cuba is spending almost $2 billion a year on food imports. Boosting agricultural production has become one of the government's top strategic priorities.
Cuba is the largest island in the Caribbean, and with its vast tracts of fertile land, it could be a regional breadbasket. Instead, its collectivized state farms have allowed more than half the agricultural land to go to waste, covered in a pernicious weed called marabou.
This year, thousands of people became self-employed, opening small businesses everywhere. While in the countryside, private farmers are working what used to be state-owned land.
This is the first steps towards a transformation that is going to be wider and deeper than that.
But there is a price to pay. More than 1 million state workers are due to be laid off. A Communist Party Congress, the first in 14 years, has been called to ratify the reforms. Can President Raul Castro keep everyone on board? Entrepreneurs, and the interest is enormous.
Of all the new businesses that people are applying for, the most popular appear to be cafes like this hole-in-the-wall snack bar. There's a hospital across the road, so business is brisk. And on this street alone, I've counted 10 new businesses. Let's go and see.
Something is happening on the streets of Havana that hasn't been seen for years. Small businesses are appearing everywhere. In communist-run Cuba, 85% of the population are employed by the state. But now the government is issuing 250,000 licenses to would-be entrepreneurs.